podcast. I am your host, Kristen, and I'm here to talk to you about what else? Knitting. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about my Make 9 for 2020, giving you a peek inside my sketchbook, and also telling you a little bit more about Swatch Master, my online swatching e-course. And probably throw some other knitting stuff in there as well. And of course, as usual, there's always a good chance I'm going to mention Diego Luna at some point. You never know. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Special thank you to my Patreon patrons for supporting the podcast. And a special welcome to any new viewers who are checking out the podcast for the first time. So in case you don't know me, I'm Kristen Janik. I'm the designer behind Media Peruana Designs. I am also the mom to two very mischievous little boys, wife to a very tall man from Peru. We live in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C., and I enjoy yoga, vegetable gardening, Orioles baseball, but mostly knitting, so let's start talking about it. All right, so it is still January. If you are like me, you definitely feel like this month just drags on and on. We are getting close to the end. In fact, by the time this episode goes live, we should be at the very end of January. Of course, the bad news is that we have only February to look forward to. We're getting there. We still have not had any major snow here, which I'm still hoping for a good snowfall where the kids can get outside and play. But other than that, I am ready for spring. I still want it to stay cool enough to wear my sweaters, but I'd like it to warm up enough to spend some time outside and not be stuck in the house quite so much. Is it Friday? The landscaper that we used to take care of our lawn during the summer came to do a bit of a cleanup in our yard, which is a disaster. And he pulled out some azalea bushes that were on the side of our house. I do not like azalea bushes. I think they just are little condos for mosquitoes. And they always seem to be kind of unruly and grow out of shape very quickly. I don't like having to take care of them. And I was looking for a space to plant a new little garden. So he pulled out these azalea bushes, and now I have a space for a dye garden. I do not have any plans to become a full-time dyer or anything like that, but I thought it would be a new little hobby since my last hobby somehow turned into my job. So someone that I follow on Instagram, Adriana, had her own dye garden last year and had recommended a seed company that sells seeds for natural dyed plants. So I ordered a mess of seeds, and we cleared out the azalea bushes, so now I have a little space to give it a try. Not for any serious purpose, but maybe to be a little hobby. I do enjoy gardening, vegetable gardening. Although, to be honest, my vegetable garden the last couple of years has not done as well as I hoped. I think we might have a bit of a bee shortage around here. Last year I had 2 or 3 very large zucchini plants, and I don't think I got a single zucchini. They all just rotted off the vine. So it seems like we have maybe a dearth of bees to fertilize our fruits. I'm hoping maybe the dye garden will help with that a little bit too. The flowers will attract maybe some pollinators, but we shall see. So now that that's been cleared out and I've got the seeds in the mail, I'm definitely really looking forward to some warmer weather. Other than that, I have been busy working. I have a bunch of deadlines between now and March for patterns that are going to be published in fall and winter issues of magazines. So I've been really focused on that. I had a bit of a catastrophe when I realized that I had knit the entire yoke almost, save a couple of rounds, of a colorwork sweater design on the wrong size needles. I forgot to switch needles before I began the colorwork. So I had to rip that all out and start again. It took less time the second time than I thought, but I ran out of one color with one round left. So more yarn is on the way, but that is kind of on hold, which is very unfortunate because the deadline is coming up. So that has been my primary focus work-wise. And of course, as I said, it is winter, not much time to get out and do anything, so we've been watching more TV. My husband and I started watching Schitt's Creek together, which we are both enjoying. I think we're almost done the second season, or since we watch it on Netflix, I can't really figure out, when one season ends and one begins. And so I think we're still on the second season. We're getting close to the end of the second season. I guess they just did the 5th season. So we should have a few more good weeks of being able to watch that in the evenings. And then on my own, I have started watching Jane the Virgin, which is also on Netflix. And I've really been enjoying it. It's, it's very self-aware, taking all of these tropes from telenovelas. So it's kind of soap opera-y, and I've, certainly parts of it are utterly ridiculous, but it is very entertaining. It is great to binge watch while I am knitting steadily on these projects. And I watched, am I still in the first season? I can't even remember if I'm in the first or if I switched to the second season. I think I'm still in the first season. I watched an episode yesterday that had Juanes in it. So if you're not familiar, Juanes is a Colombian pop star and one of my favorite musicians. He just released a new album in November, I want to say, late November, early December, called Más Futuro que Pasado. You should definitely listen to it. It's on Amazon Music if you have that. I don't know where else it is. I don't do Spotify or any of that. But when I first started watching the show, one of the, not like the theme song, but one of the songs that they played frequently in the very first episode, which was all about how Jane had promised her grandmother that she was going to stay a virgin until she got married, and her grandmother had given this whole flower metaphor that was very annoying. And so they kept playing the song Una Flor by Juanes all through the first episode, and then that was kind of the end of that. But I started watching an episode yesterday, and I had the list of guest stars, and it said Juanes. And I was so surprised, but he was really on there. He's a terrible actor. Because he's not an actor, he's a singer, and he is a wonderful singer and a very attractive man, but acting is not his thing. But it was still fun to see. So no Diego Luna this episode, but Juanes. Although speaking of Diego Luna, the second season of Narcos Mexico is going to start in, I want to say February 13th. Happy Valentine's Day to me. And that's just a couple of weeks away. So that is enough about TV and complaints about the weather. Let's go ahead and get into some actual knitting content. All right, this episode for On and Off the Needles, I don't actually have anything new on or off the needles, but I wanted to talk to you guys about my Make 9 for 2020. If you hadn't heard about this sort of a challenge that's been going on for, I guess, a couple of years, on Instagram, where the dimensions of the photo space on Instagram is such that you can break the square down into 9 smaller squares. And so people have been picking 9 projects that they hope to complete for the coming year. I have not done it in the past because, as I'm sure I've mentioned, my time available for selfish knitting or non-design knitting is pretty limited, but I thought I would give it a try this year because in 2019, I managed to finish a few selfish projects, and it was really nice to knit things that I wasn't designing, just follow pattern, no pressure with deadlines, to just sit and knit, you know, like I started doing when I started knitting 12 years ago. So I decided to make a Make 9 for this year. So I printed out my photo so you can take a peek. So these are the projects that I am hoping to complete in 2020. Let's see, this is, hopefully I'm going to remember this. This is Deschane, or Deschane, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Westport Waves, Daydreamer, Sheer V sweater, Shalshana, I think. I'm going to double check that. All right, sorry about that. This is The Sky and the Stream by Sarah Jordan, who is a wonderful, delightful person. Lionheart Shaw, Andawa, or I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and Breeze Racerback. So these two are Jessie Mae Martinson, Andrea Mowry. This is Belen. I don't remember her last name. I don't even know if I know her last name. She is a designer and podcaster who originally from Spain, who lives in England now, and her podcast is called The Hidden Inglés. So if you speak Spanish, definitely check that out. Like I said, Sarah Jordan, Gabrielle, something I can't pronounce in French, Michelle Wang, Layla, Rab, and I can't remember this person's actual name, but her Instagram handle is Transmutation Knits. So that is my Make 9, and then I'll get to tell you a little bit more about it. So I already have yarn for the Lionheart Shawl, the Breeze Racerback, which I think last episode or the episode before I had told you that I'd already started swatching. And I recently had ripped out the swatch and started re-swatching on larger needles, so that one's actually already in progress. I have yarn for the Andawa and the Westport Waves hat. So I have yarn for, oh, and the Sky and Stream shawl. So I have yarn for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 9, which I guess is a good start. So what I did is I printed out all the patterns that I already had the yarn for, and I put together, I mean, I didn't really like put together, but I bagged up the yarns and the patterns together so that they're all ready to go. I guess they'd really be ready to go if I actually went on the yarn, which I have not done. So these are the colors I'm going to be using for the Lionheart shawl, which is 3-color DK weight shawl. So I've got one of my Fiber for the People Oxide Club yarns, and then 2 skeins from Magpie Fibers of her Swanky DK. I had already, like I said, shown you the yarn for the Breeze Racerback, and just had it. Okay. And then this is the yarn I picked out for the Sky and the Stream shawl. So this is 6 and 7 fiber, and I believe this is skeiny dipping. The Andawa is obviously a full-size worsted weight sweater, so I didn't bag up that yarn because I don't have a bag big enough to hold it, but I do have it. It is Magpie Fibers Domestic Worsted in a green colorway called Norwegian Wood. So I have that. I thought I would have the yarn for the Shana shawl, but I have not been able to find a good combo. So I'm still kind of, I did print out the pattern, but I'm still thinking about yarn for that. So this one, as I said, Belen is a Spanish designer and podcaster. And so what I've done is I printed out the pattern in Spanish, just to give me a chance to try working from a pattern in Spanish. Obviously I speak Spanish, but you know, knitting terminology is like another language already in English. And so I think it'll be interesting to try to knit a pattern in Spanish and then to learn a lot of that terminology. So that is my plan for that. The Westport Waves hat, I have some leftover yarn from my UV Amidst pattern, and I used some of it for a hat for my husband last year, the brioche, it's like a basic brioche hat from Andrew Mallory. I can't remember what it's called. I'll link it in the show notes. And I still have some leftover yarn from that because they were two 400-yard skeins of Magpie Fibers solo fingering, so plenty of yarn left. So I'm going to use that. It's actually very similar colors to this, blue and vanilla silver. And then the other ones I don't have yarn for, which means I need to buy. So I need to buy yarn for Sheer V. That's fingering weight with a mohair. I need to buy yarn for chain or however that's pronounced. It calls for, I want to say, Quince & Company Kestrel, which is an Aran weight yarn. I want to do that in a cotton or a cotton linen blend, which may be like a lighter weight held double. I haven't really decided yet. But I definitely want that to be a lighter kind of summery sweater. And then Daydreamer is another fingering weight and mohair that I have plenty of fingering weight yarn, but it is almost all single skeins that are for socks or shawls. I definitely do not have a sweaters quantity for either of those two last ones. So I said I've already started the Breeze Racerback, and I've got the yarn set out for Sky in the Stream and Lionheart Shawl, and I do have the yarn for Ondawa. So at least I can get started, and hopefully by the time warmer weather is starting to arrive, I will have maybe picked out some yarn for Deschain, however that's pronounced. We shall see. If not, Maryland Sheep and Wool is just 3 short months away, more or less, and that'll be a good opportunity, I think, to pick up some yarn for a couple of the other projects. I don't know how much progress I'll make. As I said, right now I am working very hard on finishing projects for deadlines for patterns that are going to be published in the fall and winter. So I really have very little time for any kind of non-design knitting. I am, as I said, swatching for the Breeze Racerback. I would like to get my framework bralette off the needles before I start that. And I did take the measurement that I mentioned in the last episode that I had to take, so now I know where to go from here on the project. I don't have to keep delaying it. I can work on it. I've just been too busy with design work, but it's nice to have goals, even if maybe they aren't particularly realistic. So that is my Make 9 for 2020. If you are doing a Make 9 for 2020, feel free to share about it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. So another thing that I've been doing lots of work on for the last couple of weeks is getting yarn support arrangements made for all of the indie patterns that I have planned for 2020. That is going pretty well. So I do have a couple of new yarns to show off. But first, let's see, I believe in the last episode, I showed you a swatch that I'm not going to be able to find, right? Oh, here it is. I showed you, in the last episode, I showed you this swatch that is for a sweater project for the fall, or it'll probably be late summer so that you can cast on and have it ready for fall. And I was so excited. The yarn arrived this week, and it arrived so fast. So the yarn is from Biche et Bouche, I think that's how it's pronounced. And this is Le Petit Lamb's Wool, which is a fingering weight lamb's wool, as you may have guessed. And this color is called, it's getting a little blown out when I put it up close. Put it on this side. You can see it a little better. So this color is called medium green gray. I love this. This is, like I said, if I get it too close, it's getting a little bit blown out. Block it a little bit. So it is exactly what it sounds like, a medium green that is not too bright because it has a little bit of gray in it. So, of course, I'm not going to be starting on this for quite a while. It's only January. I do have a calendar planned out where I'm laying out what I plan to publish when approximately. And this one I believe I've set for late summer. I'm not sure off the top of my head. So, but that means I'm not going to be starting this for quite a while. But I'm so excited to have the yarn. And they were so nice about providing yarn support, and then they shipped the yarn and it arrived 2 days later from France. I don't know. I have no idea how that happened. I have yarn from nearby that takes longer than that. And I also have a cute little tote bag that came with it. Always use those. So that is on track. And then if you are in the Maryland area, you may be familiar with the Fiber Art Studio Tour, which takes place this year. It is in early June. I want to say the first weekend in June. And it is a tour of open studios of Maryland-based dyers. So I don't remember off the top of my head how many dyers are involved. There are a good number that you probably will also see if you're in town for Maryland Sheep and Wool. I believe a lot of them vend at Maryland Sheep and Wool as well. But every year they have I believe each dyer has mini skeins that you can get, and then there's a pattern that will go with them and uses them all together. So they asked me to do that this year, and I'm very happy to agree. It's gonna be hard to see in this plastic bag, but I got all of these minis for this year's project. So this year, they're going for kind of a neutral with a pop of color. So, the person I've been working with is Karen from Avalon Spring Farms. And I worked with her last year to release 2 patterns, which was Mándame Flores and Albemarle. Mándame Flores is a sweater pullover, and Albemarle is a shawl. So I just started working with her last year, and she is one of the dyers that is participating in the studio tour. So I've got all of these minis, and you can see that, for example, most of them are these sort of neutrals and then a little bit of pops of color. So these, I believe, are all from her. And then let's see, there are a couple other ones. This one is Flying Goat Farm. And let's see, this one is Dancing Leaf Farm. I believe both of those are at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So we have some more neutrals here. This one is unlabeled, so I don't know. Well, that's like a kind of a fun speckly. This one is also from Dancing Leaf. And this one again is unlabeled, so I have absolutely no idea where it's from. And I think that's all of them. So I am very excited to get started on that. It's probably going to be a shawl. It will probably involve slipped stitches of some kind. I haven't, as I said, I've been busy with some other big projects, so I have not given a lot of thought yet. It will happen. It will probably be on the back burner until March, when some of my other deadlines have passed, and then I'll be able to start thinking about it. I do need to wind up the minis though and start kind of playing with some stitch pattern ideas. But the idea is obviously to use all of these colors And then if you're participating in the Fiber Art Studio Tour, you'll be able to go to each of the stops and pick up the mini skeins that you need. And it will also the pattern will be released like I usually do with my indie patterns to everybody for, you know, my accessory price, which is $6. But if you're participating in the Fiber Art Studio Tour, when you go to the tour stops, you'll be able to pick up a download code, and you'll be able to download the pattern for free for probably about 48 hours. So you can get your mini skeins and get a free pattern to go with them. So those are new yarns that have come in since the last episode. I am waiting on a couple of other yarns for new designs that hopefully I will have to show you next time. All right, in this episode, I wanted to give you a little peek inside my sketchbook for two designs, one that I'm really excited about, and the other one I'm on the fence. I can't decide if I want to move forward with it or not. So the first one that I'm really excited about is this one in the middle, which I know doesn't look like much, but this is a big blanket design, which is to say a very large shawl that is big enough perhaps to use as a blanket, or at least to wrap up in. So this project is moving ahead. I am hoping this is going to be published in early March. I have arranged for the yarn support. The yarn has not arrived yet, but it should be coming soon. And I think it's going to be a really fun project. This is going to be a worsted weight shawl, so it's going to knit up quickly, but it's also going to be big. So it's still going to take, you know, maybe a little bit longer than you would think for a worsted weight project, because I do want to make it a great big blanket style shawl, and it's going to combine that worsted weight with a lace weight mohair. So the company I'm going to be working with for this one is Neighborhood Fiber Company. I am always so happy to work with Baltimore-based companies, so that is nice for me. But of course, you'll be able to use any kind of heavy worsted or Aran weight yarn that you might have. I was originally thinking about bulky, but it was too much, because the idea for this is that it starts from a center cable. So you're going to knit this long cable strip, and when I was swatching for that, I was using an Aran weight yarn, and that was quite hefty enough. I think trying to work this big cable with a bulky weight would be, I really prefer to be able to cable without a cable needle. I think that would be really tricky with a heavier yarn, but it worked well for this. So what you're going to do is start with this long cable column, knit that first, then you're going to pick up on either side for sort of the wings of the shawl. It's not going to be anything lacy or overcomplicated. It's just going to be some basic stitches in the heavy yarn. It's going to be extra squishy, really perfect for sort of late winter, early spring, when it's still plenty cold out. I know the last couple of years, if we've gotten any big snow, it's come in like March. So plenty cold here still, and probably in lots of other places. So that is the plan for that. But then right next to it, I have this other idea that I'm very unsure about. This, so hard to see what you guys can see. This, I sketched this out in response to a call for submissions for bulky weight projects, and it was not accepted. And I'm really not sure how I feel about it. So it's supposed to be sort of a cowlet poncho type dealie that you can then, you know, kind of wear just around the neck as well, or you can stretch it over your shoulders with alternating bands of stripes that sort of blend into the non-striped areas. It would be a quick project in bulky weight yarn. It could be another project that uses the lace weight mohair, maybe, but I'm not sure I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. Like I said, I kind of pulled it together, particularly in response to a call for submission, so it wasn't something that I had been thinking about on my own. Since it wasn't accepted, I am just not sure if I'm going to go ahead with it or not. So if you have any thoughts about a bulky weight cowlet poncho type dealie, whether you would like to see something like that or not, go ahead and share down below in the comments. It's definitely going to be on the back burner for now, so if I do it, it won't be until much, much later this year. It's kind of nice to have, sort of some backup patterns waiting in the wings on the off chance that, I find myself with extra free time. I already have 15 patterns on tap for this year, and 6 of them are sweaters, which is kind of ridiculous. So it's not as if I am at a loss for ideas. I have plenty of things to keep me busy. So we'll see, maybe not, but peek inside the sketchbook for 2020. So I wanted to let you all know that enrollment for my e-course Swatch Master is now open. Maybe you're wondering what on earth an e-course about swatching would look like. I developed the e-course because I really felt like there was a lack of information available about swatching and guidance for swatching. The patterns always include, this should be your gauge. We know that we should swatch, especially for things like sweaters that we want to fit, but I really felt like there wasn't much information available on why we should swatch, why it's so important, demonstrating the reason, the math behind its importance. And then there's not a lot of information about how to swatch, which, most people read the gauge information and it says so many stitches, so many rows equals 4 inches. So they just cast on that many stitches and then they knit that many rows, and then they see if it's 4 inches, which is really not the ideal way to swatch at all. And it's definitely, I don't want to say complicated because it's not complicated, but there is just more to it than that. So I developed this course, Swatch Master. It is a 4-week e-course, so you participate from the comfort of your own home, and we go over everything about swatching, from the very basics about how to swatch to more advanced stuff like how to swatch flat in the round, how to swatch and check your gauge and stitch patterns. We talk about the right way to measure and swatches and check your gauge. We talk about how to use swatches to develop your own designs. We talk about what you're looking for in your swatches other than just gauge information. We talk about what to do with all of these swatches that you now have that are just random squares of knitted fabric that don't seem to serve much purpose. We get into all of that over the course of 4 weeks. The e-course includes over 4 hours of instructional video content. So you get these video lessons every week. You get a workbook. You get a Facebook group that is just for current and former Swatch Master students, where every week I do sort of a live office hours, where you can ask any questions or seek clarification on anything that might be tripping you up. You can, ask for more information about a particular topic, or you can just come to chat. And this is the, I believe, 3rd year for Swatch Master. And as usual, I will only be running the course once this year. So the course will begin on February 10th. It will last for 4 weeks. So you'll get an email at the beginning of every week with all of your instructional materials. And throughout that week, you work through it, however fits your schedule. The only thing that is not sort of attuned to your personal schedule will be the live office hours, but we do take a vote and pick the time that works best for the most number of students. But you watch the videos whenever you want, you complete your workbook, you do your homework, which yes, involves a lot of swatching. Dory, stop chewing on that, for goodness sake. Do you have a cat that likes to chew on plastic? I really don't get it. She loves to chew on plastic bags. She's a very weird cat. Anyway, it is largely self-paced, and then you retain access to all of the videos and materials once the course is over. So you can go back and watch them, or maybe you sign up for the course and then you get busy and you're not able to participate right away. You still have the videos to watch later. You can continue to participate in the Facebook group. And this is a particularly good way to sort of start off your knitting year, because you've got 11 months of knitting ahead of you, and you want to knit lots of things that are going to fit you. So sort of getting the swatching stuff squared away, so that you really have a handle on that before you start tackling a lot of projects for the year, I think is a good way to start the year. It's not just for new knitters. It is for new knitters, but it is also for anybody who has struggled with any sort of aspect of swatching, whether that's you have trouble getting gauge, or you're not really sure how to measure your swatches accurately and check your gauge. Are you supposed to wash your swatch? You don't know. Should you stretch and pin your swatch? If you're knitting a flat or knitting a pullover in the round, is your swatch supposed to be in the round too? Any sort of swatch questions you might have are going to be covered in this course. And then, like I said, we're going to get into some more advanced things like how to swatch to create your own designs, and other things you're going to be looking for with your swatch other than just gauge. So drape and fabric and color and all of that good stuff. So the price for the e-course is $40. As I said, it is a 4-week course, so that's $10 a week. Over 4 hours of the video material. There are bonus materials that of course are a secret, and that's why they're called bonus, but there are some extra things that go along with it. And enrollment is now open. So I will definitely include a link in the show notes in case you might be interested in enrolling. Enrollment will close on February 8th, so that I have make sure I have time to get everything set up for my students, and then the course will start on February 10th, which is a Monday. So I hope you will check it out. I know we don't love swatching, but I promise it is not the worst thing in the world, and once you have a bit of a better handle on it, it becomes not quite so odious. I can't promise that you will enjoy swatching ever, but I can promise that you will have a greater appreciation for why it is important, and you will not resent it quite so much. So you can, Dory, as I said, there's a link in the show notes, or you can hop over to mediaperuana.com/Swatch Master, and I hope to see you in class. Thank you all so much for joining me for episode 14 of the Hilo Stitch podcast. You can find complete show notes at mediaperuana.com/Hilo Stitch. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons for keeping this podcast up and running. If you would like to support the podcast and Media Peruana Designs and find out how you can get free patterns and other kinds of perks, you can hop over to patreon.com/mediaperuana for all the details about that. If you are watching this on YouTube, which now that I think about it, since I stopped making the podcast available through other sites, presumably you are watching this on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, which really helps expand the reach of the podcast and helps other knitters to find it. If you are looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Media Peruana, and I will see you next time.